questions. The honourable member for Portage-Lisgar.
Madam Speaker, over the weekend, Canadians saw news of countries like the US, the UK, and Australia outlining detailed plans for vaccinating their citizens, including dry runs, with many of them starting to vaccinate in the next few days. Meanwhile, back in Canada, it's continued confusion, inconsistency, and deflection. Today, the possibility of 125,000 vaccinations was announced. But, Madam Speaker, the fact is there are almost 2 million Canadians over the age of 80 alone. So that is not enough. When will this government end the uncertainty, give Canadians the hope they desperately need, and tell us when every Canadian who wants the vaccine will get it?
The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement.
Madam Speaker, today is a great day for Canada and for Canadians. Today is a day when we can assure Canadians that we will have early doses of the Pfizer vaccine in this country, and millions of other vaccine doses are going to roll out in this country over the weeks and months to come, pending Health Canada approval. Madam Speaker, what a wonderful day for Canada. The light at the end of the tunnel is clear.
Our member for Portage-Lisgar.
Madam Speaker, on another very important but very difficult topic. The New York Times reported this weekend of the abuse, rape, and torture of young girls being videotaped and then uploaded and put onto porn websites through a company located in Montreal. The Prime Minister has actually known about this since last March, when an all-party caucus reached out to him and asked him to do something to help these young girls. Why has the Prime Minister done nothing to stop a despicable practice that is victimizing young girls, and he is allowing it to happen right in his own backyard?
Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, the sexual exploitation of children is a heinous and serious crime. And in fact, it is a crime in Canada. The criminal code is clear. It is a serious offence, Madam Speaker, to make available, distribute, possess, or access child pornography. Those who break the law, Madam Speaker, will face punishment to the fullest extent of the law. In addition, there are laws in place requiring Internet service providers to report suspected breaches to law enforcement to aid in their ability to pursue investigations. Madam Speaker, this is serious, and we are treating it seriously.
Portage-Lisgar.
Well, the Prime Minister has known about this since at least March, when he received an all-party letter from a nonpartisan group of members of the Parliament. They all came together to ask the Prime Minister to do something about this. The Minister of Justice received a letter just this past November, a few weeks ago. There has been no action on this. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we are seeing young girls as young as 14 and 15 being raped and abused. Those acts are being recorded, uploaded, and viewed millions of times, and it's happening here in Canada. So will the government use the tools they have available today and stop this from happening?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question on a very serious issue, and in fact we're taking it very seriously, Madam Speaker. We have tough laws in place. We expect those laws to be enforced. Madam Speaker, in addition to the concerns raised, we are also proud of our government's efforts to advance Canada's digital charter, which will help us in fighting these kinds of crimes online, Madam Speaker. So we have taken this seriously. We are taking this seriously. We expect law enforcement to enforce Canada's laws, and we'll continue. We've received these letters. We'll continue to look if there are gaps or lacunae in the law. We will look at that seriously, Madam Speaker, but we take this most seriously.
The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, many Canadians have had to give up travel during the pandemic, and unfortunately it was necessary. Where is the plan to recover these funds for consumers? The Honourable Minister.
Well, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for the question. We've worked hard with the industry and with Canadians, but we want to make it clear to Canadians that there will not be sector-specific funds until airlines start providing refunds to Canadians. Thank you.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable.
Oh, sorry, the Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the air industry was hit hard by the pandemic. So many workers were laid off, lost their jobs. The air sector needs a plan. Airlines need a plan. Will a plan include compensation to executives?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're working hard, and we've heard from Canadians their concerns about refunds. But again, Madam Speaker, before we spend one penny of taxpayer money on airlines, we will ensure that Canadians get their refunds, that regional communities retain air connections to the rest of Canada, and Canadian air carriers maintain their status as key customers of Canada's aerospace industry. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Madam Speaker, on Thursday, there will be a meeting where all the premiers of Quebec and the province will call for sustainable health transfers with no strings attached. Now, all of the parties at the National Assembly are calling for this. The House of Commons people, the only people opposed to it are members of the Liberal Party of Canada. The Prime Minister is isolated. He has no allies. Instead of leading a crusade single-handedly against the healthcare system in Quebec, on Thursday, will he finally listen to reason and announce an increase in health transfer payments?
La santé.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The government works on all levels to keep Canadians safe. As part of our expenditures on COVID-19, we announced $19 billion for the provinces and territories. This investment is in addition to some $40 billion that we provide through the Canada Health Transfer. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister justifies his refusal to increase health transfers by saying that his priority, and I quote, is to help Canadians get through this crisis. Well, the crisis that he's talking about is a health crisis. Quebec and the provinces have jurisdiction over health. They're calling for money to help take care of people. That's how the federal government can help people make it through the crisis. On Thursday, at this meeting of the First Ministers, will he announce an increase in health transfer payments? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have encouraged Canadians to intensify their efforts. We have earmarked $19 billion for the provinces and territories. Now, provinces must invest these funds to increase their testing, contact tracing, and the collection of data. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
A woman went in labor in a porta potty and no one noticed. A dead baby was later found in the portable toilet. Another woman appeared to be getting sexually assaulted in broad daylight and no one came to her aid. Community advocates are witnessing an increase in violence against women, yet safe places for women in the downtown Eastside have actually reduced due to COVID restrictions. Increasingly, violence against women in the downtown Eastside is accepted and normalized. This cannot be allowed to continue. Will the Prime Minister commit to work collaboratively with advocates in the downtown Eastside and develop and fund an immediate action plan to end violence against women?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, the short answer is yes. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Angela McDougall and the Feminists Deliver Coalition in the downtown Eastside in Vancouver. We have been working with them since before Women Deliver, and we recognize that COVID has only exacerbated existing issues. We've increased by 70% funding to frontline organizations. We understand that investing in them is the best way to advance gender equality, and we recognize that we have unfinished business to do, and we will work with them every step of the way in the development of a national action plan.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Madam Speaker, the National Action Plan for Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls was due in June, and this government used COVID as an excuse to delay it. But violence against Indigenous women, girls, and 2S LGBTQIA peoples has increased during the pandemic, 400 times higher in some places. And what has this government announced? Former Chief Commissioner Buller calls not a lot of money. When will this government release a national action plan and provide the resources necessary before more loved ones go missing or are murdered?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for her question and her ongoing advocacy, as our hearts are with all of the survivors and the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and two-spirited and gender diverse peoples. This national public inquiry is working now with the core working group on over 100 Indigenous women and two-spirited people working towards a national action plan that will be effective and accountable for its results. Within last week's fall economic statement, $781.5 million have been put towards this. We know we've still got to do more.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Madam Speaker, last week we found out that the entirety of the American population is scheduled to be vaccinated by June. By the end of December, that number is about 10%. And today we found out that the number in Canada is 0.003%. Last week, the Prime Minister said that it didn't matter the start, it managed the finish, and now we're getting this very dismal news for Canadians. So my question to the Minister of Procurement is, did the Prime Minister instruct her to negotiate the small dose amount to deflect from the fact we have no date on when Canadians will be vaccinated?
The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
I thank the honourable member for the question, Madam Speaker. On the contrary, we have the largest portfolio of vaccines in the world, the most number of doses per capita in the world. And what today signifies is that the arrival of those doses, millions of doses, Madam Speaker, is going to begin this month and continue in waves throughout 2021 so that all Canadians will have access to a vaccine when it is approved by Health Canada. Thank you, Mrs. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
The reality is our neighbours to the south have certainty and hope for when they can reopen their businesses, see their family members. May or June, that's when a vaccine will be available to every American. We don't have that information here in Canada. We don't have that certainty. What we have is 0.003%. That's ridiculous. We're a G7 country. When is every Canadian going to have access to the vaccine? And it will be at the same time as the Americans.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, as I said, Canadians have access to the most diverse portfolio of vaccines in the entire world, Madam Speaker, and those vaccines are going to roll out to Canadians beginning this month and continuing into 2021. That's assurance, Madam Speaker. That is a good news story for Canadians, and I am so proud to be part of a government that has allowed and enabled this to occur. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In March at Ag Committee, the Minister suggested that farmers' carbon tax payments are less than 1% of their expenditures. But obviously that's not the case. It's far more than that. The Parliamentary Budget Officer released a report showing that farmers will pay $226 million over the next 4 fiscal years for using propane and natural gas on their farms. Will the minister admit her mistake and ask the government to extend the on-farm carbon tax exemption for natural gas and propane?
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to reassure my colleague that we are very much aware of our producers' needs, and we've also made very significant commitments. When we talk about the price on pollution, we have provided exemptions for fuel on the farms, for example, for greenhouses, and we are monitoring the file very closely in conjunction with our colleagues from the Department of the Environment.
Madam Speaker, make no mistake, extending the carbon tax exemption to propane and natural gas could make a real difference on Canadian farms and across Canada. Propane and natural gas are used to not only heat barns, but there is no other option for grain drying. So why are the minister and her cabinet colleagues dragging their feet to make a small change that could make such a big difference for Canadian farms?
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Policy is designed to grow a clean economy. To support this sector, we have put in place the following measures. Emissions from livestock and crop production are not priced. Farm fuels and fuels from cardlock facilities are exempt. And there is a partial rebate for propane and natural gas used in commercial greenhouses. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
Madam Speaker, last month, the respected former Supreme Court Justice Bastarache reported on sexual harassment in the RCMP. It's serious and urgent and requires immediate action from the public safety minister. But the justice says, quote, I haven't heard anything from him, and quote, there should be a stronger reaction. The scale is huge. Over 600 interviews in 4 years and 2,300 victims of various criminal acts. The report makes 52 recommendations. Does the minister think that it at least deserves a real response and action from him?
Minister of Public Services, of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, first of all, I appreciate the importance of the question because the behaviors that were outlined in Justice Bastarache's report are deeply concerning and completely unacceptable. We know that for far too long, women in the RCMP and members of the LGBTQ community have experienced unacceptable workplace harassment. These issues are long-standing. They need to change, and that is precisely why, Madam Speaker, the government has explicitly mandated the Commissioner of the RCMP to ensure that all employees are protected from this type of harassment and violence. We've spoken to the Commissioner. We remain committed to responding appropriately to Justice Bastarache's report.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
This is the minister's job, and that was not an answer. But the Liberals always blame everyone else, except they've been in power for half a decade and as majorities for 18 of the last 30 years. The justice says he has spoken to the commissioner, and she's working on it. And he said if the minister actually, quote, read the report, he'd know what needs to be done and take action. What's worse, the report is the 16th of its kind. Victims deserve answers. Will the minister tell the more than 2,000 victims which recommendations will be implemented and when, or like all victims always, will they have to fight the Liberals to get results?
Minister.
Madam Speaker, quite the contrary to what has been asserted by the member opposite. We are absolutely committed to ensuring a workplace free of violence, harassment, and discrimination against all members of the RCMP, and in fact, in all government workplaces. We're doing this work with the RCMP to take this, and we take this responsibility very seriously. We recognize that the recommendations of Justice Bastarache provide an excellent guide to a way forward, and the Commissioner of the RCMP has assured me of her commitment to implement all of his recommendations.
L'honorable député de Thérèse.
The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Madam Speaker, new mothers who lose their jobs during their parental leave have been abandoned by the federal government because they haven't accumulated enough hours of work looking after their newborns. They're not eligible for EI. Ottawa is not giving them access to the economic recovery benefit. They're being abandoned. Will the government immediately announce new measures so that mothers can qualify for the economic recovery benefit, and when will they be able to apply? The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry, I apologize. Madam Speaker, Canadians expect and deserve an EI system that is flexible and responsive to their needs. And we've spent the last 5 years modernizing EI, giving parents a choice between 12 and 18 months of parental leave. But we recognize that because of COVID-19, many parents haven't been able to accumulate the hours they need. That's why they gave them the one-time credit. I'm very aware we've made this credit, retroactive to March 15th. I'm very aware of the issue that the member is speaking about. We are looking into it, and we will make sure that parents have the support they need. Thank you.
The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Madam Speaker, this was already a problem before the pandemic. It's unacceptable for new mothers not to have access to employment insurance if they lose their jobs at the end of parental leave. These are workers like all others. They deserve to be supported. In some cases, it's already possible to count weeks worked over the past 2 years instead of over the past year in order to qualify for EI. That's namely the case for prisoners. Will the government do the same for new mothers?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know that we have to modernize and have an EI system that's reflective of the way that workers work today. And certainly this pandemic has highlighted specific challenges in the EI system, particularly as it relates to supporting parents, mothers in particular. That's why we've spent the last 4 years taking steps to modernize, including, as I said, letting parents have the choice between 12 and 18 months, introducing a new parental sharing benefits. As we move forward, Madam Speaker, we will ensure that EI supports everyone.
The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, the problem is that employment insurance was never adapted for the Quebec parental insurance program. Mothers are abandoned by the federal government, and they're Quebecers. Because Quebec is feminist and they put in place a more generous program, women can balance work and family. Quebecers have been abandoned. They're being abandoned when they lose their jobs. And the government claims to be feminist. Will it fix employment insurance so that it stops penalizing mothers who are benefiting from a feminist parental leave program? The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know that Canadians expect and deserve an EI system that's flexible and responsive to their needs. Since 2006, the province of Quebec has provided maternity, parental, and adoption benefits to its residents. We have an agreement with the province for other EI benefits, such as regular and caregiver benefits, remain available. We are aware of the QPIP recipients who are experiencing problems. We're working really hard to address these cases on a priority basis to ensure their claimants are paid as soon as possible. There's more work to do, but I'm on this and we'll keep working to ensure that EI is there for everyone.
I remember for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, Canada's rich history is celebrated in English and French, but minority communities are still having trouble getting services in the language of their choice. The government promised to table legislation to modernize the Official Languages Act. The end of 2020 is close and nothing's been done. Will the minister commit to tabling legislation before Christmas?
The Ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It goes without saying that we must and continue to protect both official languages. When I hear the Conservatives, however, saying that there are issues surrounding services in French from the federal government or in linguistic communities, I find that very surprising. It's a bit cynical as well, because they are the ones who for years cut services in French. We will stand alongside communities to help them.
Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mais des alertes COVID en anglais.
COVID alerts in English only. Virtual meetings and presentations for public service in English only. A $900 million contract given to a company that's unable to offer services in French. There are many examples of this government's failure to protect French. When will the minister introduce a bill to modernize the Official Languages Act? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, we have been there, we will be there, we are there, standing beside communities. We've invested in them. We have an action plan. We increased the budget for the Canada Council for the Arts. In addition, we have protected the military college in Saint-Jean, and we've supported Ottawa as a bilingual city. We have worked throughout the pandemic to help these communities, and we will continue to do so.
Aurora, Oak Ridge.
Madam Speaker, when I was in the RMC, fewer than 10% of the people registered were women. We weren't welcome, and we were pushed to leave. 30 years later, very few things have changed. Women continue to be underrepresented in the Army, and there's still discrimination. When will the government take action to keep more Canadian women in the armed forces? The Honourable Minister.
No plan?
Madam Speaker, the Canadian Armed Forces are working extremely hard to promote more women in the Canadian Armed Forces. In fact, we have designated that 25% of women to be included in the Canadian Armed Forces. And we will continually assess the progress and make changes as necessary. And we will not stop at 25%, Madam Speaker. We will continue until we have reached full parity.
Moment, please. I see that there is no translation. Il n'y a pas de traduction.
There's no translation.
L'honorable, I just want to remind the members that they have to have the headset. I was thinking of it in French. The headset with the boom down in order to ensure that the translation is, the interpreter is able to translate. I don't know if the minister has his headset, but it is a must for all of the goings-on in Parliament.
Next question.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member.
I'll have to go to the next question since the minister doesn't have his headset. The honourable member for Churchill, Kiwanangu, Askey.
Mr. Speaker, the back and forth between the Liberals and the Conservatives on the vaccine show what's wrong with our politics. They're blaming each other while leaving Canadians in the lurch. It's rare that I say this, but they have a point. When Liberals say the Conservatives privatized and ravaged our national capacity for production, they're not wrong. When Conservatives point to decades of Liberal austerity that got us here, they're also not wrong. But it's Canadians that are paying the price. Lives are at stake. When will this government invest in the publicly owned national production of the vaccine so that Canadians get what they need?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, we're very proud of our innovators, our entrepreneurs, our researchers, our scientists. That is why we made significant investments in Made in Canada solutions. We invested in Vito Intervac, $35 million in Saskatoon. We invested in Medicago, $173 million in Quebec City. And we also supported the National Research Council facility in Royal Mount, $44 million. We'll continue to support Made in Canada solutions and support local manufacturing capabilities.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Madam Speaker, the banks are making record profits, and big corporations and their CEOs have gotten richer during the pandemic. But instead of going after the ultra-wealthy, instead of implementing a wealth tax, and instead of shutting loopholes for offshore tax havens, the Liberals are now making the self-employed pay back the support they received in good faith through the CERB. Madam Speaker, it is weeks before Christmas. Instead of taxing the ultra-wealthy, why are the Liberals acting like the Grinch and stealing Christmas from those who can afford it the least?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question, but let me correct the record. When it came to supporting low-income and middle-income Canadians through the course of this pandemic, we were there for them. 9 million Canadians took advantage of CERB to help keep food on their tables and a roof over their heads. When it came to supporting small businesses, we did the same thing. Madam Speaker, if the honourable member is so concerned about taxing the wealthy, I'd suggest that she talk to her NDP colleagues in the last Parliament who voted against the Canada Child Benefit, which is putting more money in the pockets of 9 out of 10 families, and voted against our plan to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% so we could cut them for the middle class.
Honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, 50 years ago today, the report of the Royal Commission on the Status of Women was tabled in this place. The report called for many measures to help achieve gender equality, something that our government continued to work towards. Could the Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development please share some of the progress we have seen made for women in Canada since that report was tabled 50 years ago? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague. 50 years ago today, there wouldn't have been enough women in this House to ask the question and then to answer that question. Here we are, 50 years later. There are 100 of us in this House. Our job is to honour and to thank those whose shoulders we stand on, to protect the fragile progress that has been made, to protect the hard-won gains, the hard-won gains that we have all made and to commit to focus and stay united to complete the unfinished business of the Royal Commission on the Status of Women report.
The honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, on December 5th, 2018, this government launched an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Fast forward 5 years, and they still have yet to deliver their promised action plan. This government at best has instituted a lack of action plan that can be seen in the most recent updated economic statement, which was really just a patchwork of spending that should have been targeted. My question is, when will this government share a proper plan?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for the question, although I always have difficulty because this was rejected by the former government and for decades fought for the families and survivors and by the families and survivors, and we will not let them down. The fact that we launched the first ever national public inquiry and now have over 100 Indigenous women and Two-Spirited people working together for an effective plan that will be accountable for its results. And I do believe that the investments last week of almost $800 million is adding to all of the work we've been doing for the last 5 years, and we will get there.
Honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Madam Speaker, the Conservatives have always put a priority on an action plan for murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, but this government has a history of not delivering on their promises. Last week, it was about not delivering on clean drinking water. This week, it's about failing to address violence against Indigenous women and girls. Instead of establishing a real plan, the minister is simply throwing money at the tragedy. When will the minister announce a national action plan with the dollars targeted towards that plan?
The Honourable Minister.
As the member well knows, this is the national action plan that requires all of the provinces and territories and Indigenous governments and all of the partners to work together to make sure that there'll be a national action plan. Yukon will come forward with their approach this week. We will get there together, and that will be effective and accountable as we have with the $30 million that will go forward over the next 5 years to make sure the plan is working.
The honourable member for Calgary Skyview.
Madam Speaker, recently a Financial Post article on MindGeek detailed a well-known 2015 case in the United States involving one of Pornhub's partner channels that was successfully sued by 22 victims of sex trafficking whose videos were published on Pornhub and received over 670 million views. The victims pleaded to have their videos removed, yet as recently as last week, MindGeek was still allowing these videos to be uploaded. Why has Canada become a tech haven for online exploitation of women and girls?
The Honourable Minister.
Online platforms are central to our everyday communications and allow us to connect with the world. However, we are extremely concerned that they are used to endanger the safety of individuals, including vulnerable persons and children. This is why our government is actively working to create new regulations that would require online platforms to eliminate illegal content, including hate speech, child sexual exploitation, and violent extreme content. Madam President, I hope that the official opposition will work with us and vote in favor of this legislation when we bring it forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Skyview.
Madam Speaker, the minister's mandate letter instructs him to ensure websites remove illegal content and online harms, such as hate speech, incitement to violence, and exploitation of children. Canada's MindGeek is a big tech monopoly that owns the vast majority of the world's online explicit sites while profiting off sexual exploitation and racism. The minister indicated that he wants to take on big tech companies. Will he start in Canada's own backyard with MindGeek?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In fact, we intend to introduce these regulations as early as the beginning of the session in 2021, and we have already started tackling online platform. I tabled Bill C-10 just a few weeks ago, and I hope the Conservative Party will vote in favor of Bill C-10 to start tackling online platforms, and I hope they will also vote for the bill that we will be bringing forward to tackle online hate and child pornography, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Madam Speaker, We can't explain why the government hasn't asked Davy yet to build the Diefenbaker icebreaker. The ship should have been built 3 years ago. Ottawa even had to withdraw the contract from the company that had it because it was unable to begin construction. And even today, the federal government still insists on not giving Davy the contract. The Liberals know it. Davy is the only shipyard capable of starting construction immediately. We're talking about Davy. Why? When will they finally announce that they're giving the Diefenbaker contract to Davy? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. The Davy Shipyard is a strong and reliable partner with our government. Already, we have collaborated with Davy many times in the past, and with respect to that question, we have worked hard with Davy, and we're going to continue to do so in the months and years to come. Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Madam Speaker, we received less than 3% of contracts to date. They withdrew the contract from C-SPAN because they couldn't deliver it, and they swapped it for 16 small ships. Davy can deliver this contract now, but they gave it back to the company that couldn't fulfill it. It is disgusting. They're doing everything to sideline Quebec. How come Ottawa is so intent on depriving Quebec of $2,000 jobs, and $1 billion in investment? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, like I've already said, all Canadian shipyards were able to apply for the application that ended in March, and PSPC received this information as part of this process that allowed the Canadian government to determine the best way to move forward in the years and months to come. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Kildone and St. Paul.
The Liberals boldly promised to bring in over 400,000 new permanent residents into Canada next year. Meanwhile, there are over 10,000 permanent residents abroad who are approved to come to Canada. They sold their homes, quit their jobs, pulled their kids out of school, and yet they've been stranded in their country of origin for over 9 months with little to no communication of when they can finally come to Canada as promised by this Liberal government. How on earth, Madam Speaker, is this Liberal government going to process and bring in hundreds of thousands of new immigrants next year when they can't even give dignity or certainty to the thousands that they've approved this year, Madam Speaker? That's what I'd like to know.
The Honourable Minister.
I'm happy to take the question, Madam Speaker. The answer is simple. We have a plan that's focused on jobs. We have a plan that's focused on economic recovery, and we have a plan that's focused on long-term prosperity. Madam Speaker, we are investing additional resources. We are leveraging technology. We have a plan that's going to drive this country forward. Thank you.
A member of Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Madam Speaker, exporting businesses need certainty and stability, and yet exporters have no idea what it'll look like for them as of January 1st, regardless of whether the government signs an agreement with the United Kingdom or not. We were told at the Trade Committee by exporters that this does not make them feel comfortable. And customs brokers are saying that small businesses are coming to them looking for advice, and they have no idea what to say. The UK is our third largest export market. So when will the minister disclose to businesses what the plan is? There's only 16 days left.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for that question. Absolutely. Our priority is to provide predictability and stability for Canadian businesses that export to the United Kingdom. We're very pleased that we have reached a successful transition continuity agreement with the United Kingdom. This will largely preserve the terms of CETA, which was an ambitious agreement, 98% reduction in tariffs, protecting Canada's supply managed products, maintaining our high standards for consumers, workers, and the environment. I look forward to getting support from members on all sides of the House so that we can provide this predictability and stability for Canadian businesses.
Our member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Minister of Foreign Affairs told Canadians threatened by those acting for Communist China to call their local police. Is that what I should say to Father Sue, the Richmond priest whose parishioners were photographed during a baptism? How about the pro-democracy advocate who was beaten up in Surrey?
Sure, police can respond after the fact, but what active steps is the minister taking to stop the harassment from Communist China within our borders?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Madam Speaker, we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact on the country, and it has created uncertainty that foreign actors, such as the government of China, and ideologically motivated violent extremists have exploited to further their own interests. I want to assure the member and this House that our security agencies are vigilant and actively investigating all threats of foreign interference while working with domestic and foreign partners such as the Five Eyes. And over the course of the pandemic, our security agencies have also worked very proactively with business, research entities, and other orders of government to ensure that they have the information and tools that they need to secure intellectual property and the interests of all Canadians.
The honourable member for Vimy.
Merci, Madame. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Some businesses in my riding of Vimy and across Canada continue to feel the financial impacts of the pandemic. Can the Minister of Middle Class Prosperity and Associate Minister of Finance explain how the highly affected sectors credit availability program will help businesses in the hotel and tourism sector, in the travel, arts, and cultural sectors to survive and recover from the pandemic? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for her hard work on behalf of her constituents and on the committee. The Highly Affected Sectors Credit Availability Program is a new program aimed at the most affected businesses in sectors such as hotel and tourism and others. The program will provide 100% government-guaranteed financing to severely affected businesses and low-interest loans up to $1 million. Our government will do everything in its power to help Canadian workers and businesses get through these tough times so they can remain viable and open to stimulate future economic growth. Thank you.
Lethbridge.
Earlier this year, the Prime Minister said, I quote, "We need to get our resources to new markets safely and securely, and that is why I have always advocated for Keystone XL pipeline," end quote. As the Prime Minister knows, Keystone XL would be a huge advantage to Indigenous communities. It would generate prosperity in our country by developing energy in an environmentally friendly capacity, and it would create jobs during a time when unemployment is through the roof. My question is very simple. Can the Prime Minister simply outline 3 very tangible steps that he will take in the next little while to get this project done?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have supported this project, as the Prime Minister has said, unwaveringly. We have always supported this project for many of the reasons that the Honourable Member cites. One of the strongest arguments for this project is that we have a government that is fighting climate change, that is putting a price on pollution, that is committed to net zero emissions by 2050, and that is making investments to help our energy sector become more sustainable than ever. That is the record we will be able to present to our partners in the U.S. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cloverdale Langley City.
Madam Speaker, Roger Foley lives with a neurological disorder requiring him to live in a hospital entirely dependent on caregivers. 4 times the caregivers he depends on for everything suggested he consider MAID, telling him that his care is too expensive. And this is what Roger told the Justice Committee. "My blood will be on your hands if you allow the Truchon decision to tear down our laws. There will be thousands of wrongful assisted deaths." Why did the Liberals vote against our amendments to protect Canadians with disabilities?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. Medical assistance in dying is a profoundly complex and issue with deeply held beliefs. And we are trying to respect all of those, Madam Speaker, in this proposed legislation, including, Madam Speaker, protections for the vulnerable, which we have built into this legislation after having consulted across Canada, and as well as a massive online consultation, Madam Speaker. We've built in protections for the vulnerable in order to balance freedom to choose, the autonomy to choose with protection.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
Speaker, the Liberals are frustrated that my colleagues and I have been so diligent in vocalizing the concerns of disabled Canadians and medical professionals in regards to C7. But this Liberal government ignored their own legislation to review C-14, held the House hostage in May and June, prorogued Parliament in August, limited the Justice Committee to 4 hearings blocking written submissions, and chose not to appeal the deadline imposed by the Quebec Superior Court. Why does this Prime Minister not want to create legislation that shows compassion for all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. A legislative review is in fact envisaged, Madam Speaker, in the bill that was passed in 2016. That is still part of the government's plan. It has always been announced as part of the government's plan, as part of the steps introducing this particular piece of legislation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, all that the Conservative Party is doing right now is delaying and causing more people to suffer, Madam Speaker, and we therefore are asking all parliamentarians on all sides of the House to pass this bill as expeditiously as possible.
The honourable member for Brampton South.
Madam Speaker, many Canadians educated abroad, particularly those in the healthcare field, are ready to contribute to Canada's pandemic effort but cannot because it is not easy to have their credential recognized. At the same time, newcomers to Canada, many of whom arrive with highly quality training and years of experience, face the same difficulty. Madam Speaker, can the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion tell this House how investment announced in the fall economic statement will help to make sure those educated abroad can work in their fields sooner?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank the member from Brampton South for her important question. Attracting skilled newcomers from around the world is critical to Canada's economic growth and recovery. The foreign credential recognition programs helps address specific barriers faced by skilled newcomers, such as the length and cost of credential recognition. To scale up these supports, our government is proposing to invest $15 million in 2021 into the programming, benefiting up to 15,000 skilled newcomers. Our government will continue to take strong and decisive action to support skilled newcomers and keep our economy growing.
The honourable member for Victoria.
Madam Speaker, every year 6 million Canadians can't visit the dentist when they need it because of the cost. And women are less likely to have access to dental care because they are often in part-time or precarious employment with no benefits. A lack of childcare during the pandemic has meant that women who had benefits lost them when they had to leave their jobs to stay home with the kids. And many single moms were already struggling to afford dental visits for themselves and their children. The Liberals say they'll take action to help women hardest hit by this pandemic, but they continue to ignore their needs. When will this government make sure all Canadians get the dental care they need?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. And I thank the member opposite for highlighting the difficulty that many Canadians are facing in terms of the loss of benefits. And that's why we've been working so hard at bringing forward a national pharmacare plan, Madam Speaker, because every Canadian deserves the right to have access to medication in a timely way, in an affordable way. But Madam Speaker, as I've said before in this House, we're always interested in exploring new programs, and I would suggest the member opposite work with colleagues in this House to study the issue.
The honourable member for Don Valley East.
Madam Speaker, my constituents of Don Valley East are concerned about the new challenges that the pandemic has created. These are families of newcomers to Canada who are looking to complete their path to Canadian citizenship. They're eager to know what innovation has been made so they can become part of our Canadian family. Can the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship provide this House with the details of the plan to allow citizenship tests to be taken online?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for her question. Throughout the pandemic, we've adapted quickly so that we can continue to welcome new Canadians while upholding the integrity of Canadian citizenship. We've moved citizenship ceremonies online this spring and have welcomed more than 43,000 new Canadians through the process. We've also launched a new platform so that citizenship tests could resume online. We know that the citizenship process is a significant milestone for newcomers, and we look forward to more measures and good news on this front. Thank you.